Why did you change your mind and pardon your son?
Mr. President, why did you pardon your son?
As you saw there, President Biden has still not answered questions about his decision to pardon his son, Hunter Biden. The controversial pardon was cited by President-elect Trump's attorneys in a motion made public today to dismiss his criminal hush money case. They argue that President Biden's decision was motivated by similar complaints Trump has made about the Department of Justice. Ed O'Keefe joins me now. Ed, great to see you. So obviously, this decision has sucked up a lot of oxygen from the president's historic trip to Angola.
Yeah.
And it's not like he's not hearing the questions, I believe. Are you surprised that he hasn't taken any?
No, because this is what he does. He issues controversial decisions or makes controversial decisions and then manages to keep himself away from cameras and microphones. It's become a pattern over the last year especially. And in this case, I don't think he really cares, frankly, what we want to know about this. He made clear in that statement, I hope the country can appreciate essentially that he's a father, but also president, and was able to take advantage of a unique presidential power that exists for him, and decided that amid what's coming next, or at least what Donald Trump says is coming next with the Justice Department and the FBI, that he might as well get his son out from any real trouble. And as for political consequences, you know, he and people around him would probably argue, look, he has served his 4 years. People will think whatever they want. But I remember what he said in December 1972 when his wife was killed and his two boys were in the hospital, that he really seriously considered stepping down, having just won that race at the age of 29, saying Delaware can get another senator, but these boys can't get another father.
Yes.
And I think he knows that he's leaving the presidency in 7 weeks, and he'll no longer be president, but he'll still be a father. And he could not live with himself with Hunter behind bars or facing the threat of serving jail time.
And I think the pardon itself is not the issue here, really. I mean, it is, but there's also what he has said to the public.
Yeah.
But on that statement that you mentioned, you know, Trump's team is now using it. And I anticipate that'll just be the first of many times they point to Biden's decision. Are Democrats worried that this is going to give Trump a lot more room to do things like this?
Worried, terrified, pissed off, concerned, realizing they have little to stand on now after spending the last several years arguing that they were the party of responsibility and rule of law that would never do something like this because the president says he won't. Well, he just snatched the rug out from under them, and it's going to make their arguments ring a lot more hollow. And so they've got to come up with a new way of attacking Trump and all the things that he may try to do, both with pardon powers, with enriching himself and his family or his close friends by nominating people in his family to serve in key roles. Because at this point, all the Republicans need to do is turn around and say, yeah, but he said he wouldn't do this, and now he's doing it.
Well, before you run off, I do want to ask you about Angola, because President Biden is there right now. And he, you know, promised that he was going to go to Africa for quite some time. Why is this so important to him to do before he leaves?
Well, he had made the vow in 2022 that he would make the trip in 2023. It got postponed for a variety of reasons. Then he was supposed to go in October. There were those 2 hurricanes in the south, so they pushed it to now because he wanted to make this trip. It speaks to the focus he's had for so long on the ongoing struggles between democracies and autocracies, or essentially the United States and China. China is the biggest trading partner for most of the African continent. The project he's highlighted while in Angola is a big rail project that the United States is helping fund to get minerals off the continent to ports so that they can be sent to the United States and elsewhere. It's the kind of work he would have liked to do much more of over these last 4 years of COVID, and political acrimony back here at home hadn't been such a big focus, and he would have loved to do, especially in his second term, but he won't. And the real question about this trip is, okay, great, you made it, but to what end? And what happens when Trump takes over? Does this kind of focus continue? Or does it fall by the wayside as the president-elect takes a much firmer approach to China?
Yes, that is a big question, Ed. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.